Good morning, good afternoon. The webinar is going to be starting in 1 minute. We're going to give people the chance to log in. In the meantime, as always, I would love for you to write in the chat where you are joining us from, why you're here, what's your job role, tell us about yourself. We want to know our audience. We want to get to know you. Okay, 1 more minute. Okay, have Mark from Boston, Dominique in Madrid. Hello, both. Okay. Chicago. Hello, Patrick. Germany. And Madrid again. Okay, wonderful. Okay. Well, let's get started, but keep the messages coming. We really want to know who's on the other side of the screen. So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Gala webinar. I am Isabella Massardo. I'm content strategist at Gala Global. Today's webinar is about AI for language business, everything, everywhere, all at once, which is inspired by that great movie. I hope you all seen it. And the presenter today is Kerstin Burns, and I'm really looking forward to hear what she has to say. Kerstin worked as a translation system specialist for the automotive industry, introducing machine translation to Daimler Chrysler and translation management software to BMW. And then in 2005, Kerstin started Burns Language Consulting, BLC for short, a company offering consulting services, training, and support for all multilingual information process chain modules. Kerstin, welcome. It's your first time at Gala, presenting a Gala.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're more than welcome. Everyone, as always, feel free to use the Q&A box or the chat box, whatever you prefer, to write your questions. We're going to have a QA at the end of Kerstin's presentation. And I invite you to submit your questions throughout the presentation as you think of them. The webinar will be recorded, and I will send you a follow-up email with a link to the recording as soon as it becomes available on our website. So for now, I'm going to go backstage, and I'm going to give the floor to Kerstin. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you very much, Isabella. That's very kind. And I may, if I may add, it sounded a bit like the European Song Contest when you read out where all people came from. I really like that. Germany, Spain. Yeah, well, hi everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here and very excited as well. I do hope my English holds up. Please bear with me if sometimes I'm grabbing for some English words. I do have my notes, of course. I try to do this as well as I can. And you can also ask questions if something wasn't understood or is generally, if there is a question, as Isabella said at the end. As I don't like to introduce myself so much myself, but also Isabella already did a great job, I thought I'd just let ChatGPT do the job now. I did this beforehand, of course, but this is exactly what it's spat out for me. I used ChatGPT 4 to introduce me. I asked him or her or it. And I have to say, thank you for making me such an expert, ChatGPT. This used to be kind of true, but sadly, today, maybe it isn't so much anymore because I have a different job now. So being an expert here in Red, yes, but maybe not exactly for these topics. I'm more into strategy and change management today. This is also what I'm going to talk to you about partly here. And as you can see, my team and these clouds, these thoughts they have, these are the experts. So they're helping me out here. Also, I did introduce MT to Daimler Chrysler, as Isabella correctly said, but I did not introduce it to BMW, sadly. I did, however, introduce TMS, Translation Management System, and process to BMW. So I think this example shows greatly, perfectly, what Gen AI is capable already today and what it is not capable of so well. The problem here is, of course, the mix of correct, missing, and outdated info, mixing it into excellent wording, which gives the reader a good feeling about the correctness of the answers, even if maybe they are not quite correct. Also, I would like to add some personal info, which luckily ChatGPT did not find. I am 52 years old. I'm married, mother of two, 16 and a 20-year-old, and my hobbies are my company because that's all the time I have. So Isabella already said a little bit about our company, so I will keep it short because this is not why you are all here. But maybe suffice to say that what we mainly do is we set up and optimize our customers' processes and introduce the right language technology to them to make their language operations efficient. Our customers come from all verticals. They usually have a very strong interest in lean and efficient language processes for very large text volumes. Next to our expertise and my great team, which you saw before, our USP is our independence of system or service vendors. So we always support our customers objectively. It's very important to us and to our customers, of course. And next year, we'll be in the language process and tech consulting business for 20 years with our company, and I am very proud of this. And so watch out for some specials and maybe a party. And if you're in Germany, you're heartily invited to join us. That'll be probably around October or maybe on the TCOM next year. So let's briefly look at what I want to share with you here today so that you get an idea. There's a rough time outline. I try to stick to it, and Isabella is also helping me time box a little bit. Thank you already for this. After this intro, which is almost done already, I would like to briefly dive into the AI dilemma, I call it, for LangOps or language operations, language business management, in order to create some context for our future use case and strategy part. And of course, I'll be very happy to take your questions at the end for sure. So let's address the elephant in the room. We already see it, so why not address it? Thanks to AI, customers expect information in their own language everywhere in real time for free. This is great for them, great for the customers, the end users, but a great dilemma, in our opinion, for the creators and providers of such information in all languages, because they need to make sure that it's correct and that it works. When I prepared for this presentation, I wondered a lot about who might come to listen. And I am sure there's some experts in the field here today. So hi, I hope I'm not saying anything that you wonder about. And there's maybe also newcomers. So I really tried to span this tough bandwidth and to cover this hot and in the core rather technical topic of AI. I tried a healthy balance, but do reach out if you have comments or thoughts on that. It would be interesting for us because it's also always very hard to speak to customers on the right level. It's very interesting for us to hear how you found this. Also, please bear in mind that I'm not an AI specialist. I tackle this topic from a strategic and use case centered angle. I brought use cases with me here today. Some technicality is in them, but as I said, I am not the expert here. But I have experts and they did that, so you can talk to them. Reach out if you want to do that. Before we go on, we need some basic understanding of the terms, I think, even though we might all have talked about this already, read about it a lot, maybe even done it. So before we continue, let's briefly look at what we really mean when we say AI. And most people probably, when they say artificial intelligence, I imagine they don't really mean the more philosophical aspect of how can I make a computer actually imitate human intelligence. I think that most people start to mean, like when they say artificial intelligence, they mean more like machine learning, maybe the subdiscipline to train algorithms to learn from data. Some important phrases here, deep learning, supervised and unsupervised learning. The result of this is a language model, and everything that has AI in its name was based on some machine learning. So this is an important thing to memorize as well. The language models that we talk about today are usually, when people say language model, they mean large language models. They are based on these huge data volumes, as we all probably know, and they are specialized on solving natural language tasks. Yeah, prominent LLMs are Llama, Mistral, and there's many, many more. And of course, one of our superstars, the GPT, the Generative Pre-trained Transformer. This is an LLM for language generation tasks. And it does calculate on the fly which word is most probably next, which do also all other LLMs do, but it has a very natural sounding language generation. So it's very intriguing. It can really cover many human language generation topics, and it's ideal for chatbots. Hence, our star here is the ChatGPT, which is based on GPT. It's a chatbot with a GPT in the background, let's say. With this in mind, let's take a look at some popular management questions today, which shall introduce us into our topic a little bit. You may have heard this before, maybe from your own managers or wherever. Why is our translation so expensive? Do we really need to train MT? Why more engines? Why retrain? Can we just use AI? I heard it's fast, free, and sounds great. These are good questions, and it's important, of course, to react to these. But before we do this, or before I could, I had to think about this. And we looked also with our customers, we looked at our classical translation process first. This is a very simplified version of an end-to-end translation process for the sake of argument, and I won't explain it to you because you all know this. But what I would like to point out here are some advantages of this old classical way of doing things. We have our data secure in our repositories. If we did our job right, this data is of good quality. We have trained good MT engines with this data. We know the cost of this whole process. We have trained experts, and the processes are generally stable and integrated into our business ecosystem. And this is something that is very important to memorize, because this is when it becomes usable and secure and business ready. Now, if we simply try to exchange this with an LLM, which is a valid idea to do that, we have a lot of, I could call them black boxes, but now they're orange boxes, so let's call them that. We have to do with a lot of topics all of a sudden. What type of LLM do we actually need? How expensive will this be? How do we ensure quality and data security? Do we have any experts in the loop? Where do we get them? And last but not least, how do we actually integrate all this into our ecosystem? Because that's what we really need, right? If we're in a business and we are catering for the buyer side, let's say mostly, so they really need a good working process, or they need an LSP that has a very good working integrated process. So this needs to be secured and it needs to be clear. One of our clients was faced with this question, or when faced with this question, tackled this head on with us. And this is our first little use case that I want to share. It's less a use case and more benchmarking because they wanted to see how good is it actually? How good are we? How good is our process? And how good is the LLM? So they, I know there's a couple of other benchmark studies out there. This is a customer specific one where we really compared a trained MT in the company and an internal LLM and also other MTs that they were using. You see here DeepL and Google, they are no secret. So and we benchmarked them. That was a longer process. I'm not really going into this. You know the drill. This is I think it's a quite clear-cut thing how you can benchmark these different technologies, and we found out that the trained MT system was by far fastest, and it also delivered the best quality in this process, and the LLM was a lot slower, like over 100 times slower, and delivered the lowest quality. I mean, it's not that it wasn't usable, but it was not very easy to access for customers to use it for the users. And yeah, again, this was not feasible at the time. The customer takes this question very seriously though, and they made it part of their strategy to keep benchmarking the internal offering, the internal engines and the internal system, and process regularly to make sure that they are using the best tech. So the results may look different over time. Maybe in some month we'll have another little presentation and I can tell you more about this. But back to the general question here. And why don't we use AI? Well, you are already, and I know this has been stressed a lot by everyone, but it's true. People that are using MT, neural MT, neural machine translation, transformer NMT models are using specific AI trained for exactly this purpose, mainly translating natural language for one direction or two or maybe 40. And the thing is, these models can be efficiently deployed even on CPU-only machines, and they still deliver fast translations, whereas LLMs are still very resource hungry, expensive in deployment, and they need very large GPU machines still. The translation with an LLM is, although they have these large machines, rather slow compared. So AI is evolving, of course. So, and we need to watch this, that's for sure. That's why our customer also wants to come back to this. But let's see where we are on the life cycle of artificial intelligence to just pinpoint this a little bit. You know the Gartner hype cycle, I'm sure. So I stole with pride here. Where are we? We are taking up speed on our way down the trough of disillusionment, which would be down here then. And the plateau of productivity is still approximately 2 to 5 years away. But these things change here very fast. So we have to watch this. And this life cycle actually, I think, would need updating every month or every 2 months. This one is from August this year. Current risks and chances, you know them. I won't repeat them again, but I think it's important to point out that good AI, good LLMs need people and data. And we will come back to this when we have looked at our use cases here. It does not necessarily help us that the AI tool landscape behaves like yeast in addition to this. So although we are not on the plateau of productivity yet, the AI tool landscape is insanely large. We have from 1,400 company logos on this map last year, we now have 2,000, so 600 more. This is extremely impressive, but how can you keep track of such a rapid development if you're working in a company? That is extremely hard if this is not your main core business. So no wonder our customers have like a million questions regarding AI applications for the language business. This is one such customer. It's of course AI generated by DALL-E or Chat GPT-4o. And let's see, what are the main questions that our customers have? They wonder what the global AI strategy in their own company is sometimes, because this is what they need to connect their language business strategy to. Also, what is the AI knowledge that we should all have in the team? What is the infrastructure that we will need? What data do we need, and do we have that data? And what's the quality of that data? So there's a couple more questions that align here. Do we need to hold on to legacy systems? Spoiler alert, yes, please do. Especially hold on to your data. Don't let that go. And what AI use cases exist in our company, which leads us, of course, to our next topic, which is the AI strategy and use cases. I am kind of bundling this into one. So the strategy is a little bundled up with use cases, because I do think that to find out what you want to and need to do with AI, you do need to get in there and get your hands dirty, let's say. But before we do that, what are the strategic questions that we have here, and how do we want to answer them? These are still actually quite classical questions, and they have not changed much. I mean, it depends, of course, on your position in the company and maybe also the size of the company, the way you're built up. But if you really think about your language business, your language ops, you have to think about the value of language services for your business. Otherwise, why do you do it, right? How important is it? How can we offer these services, or how can you offer these services so that all your customers are happy? And when I say customers, I mean your internal customers and their customers, so your external ones as well. How can we do this in an efficient and beneficial way so that our business grows? I think these are logical, and they don't actually contain AI, because AI is not part of the question, but it may be part of the answer. So on the other hand, you see here that changed a bit. We now need to answer these questions also by looking at AI and by thinking about how to consider AI in these in our thoughts. So AI is not a strategy per se, but a means to reach a strategic goal. And when we tackle the most important one, actually, from my opinion, who are our customers and what are their needs? That's why we all do this. Our clients, language business customers are meant here. So our client have internal customers, and these are the ones that we are asking here. And also when you ask them and you look into it, look deeper into what they need, you find the usual. No, they want quality, they want fast delivery, automation, efficiency. They want integration of the services. AI is usually not necessarily mentioned here explicitly because for the internal customers, it's not a strategy in itself or a need in itself, but it's a means to an end. So it's a very powerful one for sure, because you can do a lot with it. You can help the process along a lot with it, and you can probably reach your goals better when looking into it, but it is not a strategy in itself. How do we now, how do we find out more about it, how to use it efficiently and how to reach our goals? Well, our customer thought, why don't we ask our internal customers for LLM use cases? And this is how we came to find the use cases that I want to share with you here today. And while they gathered these, they also thought, when we have the use cases and we do them with our customers, we would also like to find out more about all these topics that we saw before, so that we can finally maybe answer them. No? The orange / black box questions. What about quality method, security cost, and skill sets? So these are use cases that the our clients, internal customers came up with when looking at the classical translation chain again. So we said, and the customer said, it makes sense to enrich, to enhance the classical translation process with AI and not to just exchange this process with AI, because as we saw before, too many questions, too unsecure, and good data already here. We don't want to spoil that. So we want to, the customers' use cases, we will tackle 2 here today, but we have the quality estimation. You have heard about this before, I'm sure, so I won't say too much about it. It can be used to look at a machine translation result and say if it's good enough or not, to be actually routed right through and not see a human anymore. You can also use it to support MT training by, you can create synthetic data, you can create rules for the MT, there's all kinds of things you can do. But the ones that we will look into in more detail are auto post editing and transformation. So I will, for the sake of time, start with the auto post editing use case. What did our customer want to find out? What did we want to find out with this project? We wanted to know if we can optimize MT output with LLM technology, catering to our client's customer need that wanted this. We wanted, of course, to also learn if the LLM methodology and LLM types, what are the right ones? And we wanted to also include our client and their customers in terms of co-creation, have a project that embraces everyone, and to learn more about the setting. What does the user scenario actually have to look like to produce the best results here? Prior to this, we had to analyze a lot of customer data. We tried and tested several LLM types and methods of optimizing the best suited to this use case. So I am kind of leading with the result, but I will give you a little more in a moment. You see here again an extremely simplified process of how the auto post editing actually works. The real magic, of course, lies behind the scenes, because before we got here, we first needed to decide which LLM was best for the use case. We here used Mistral 7B that came out first when preparing, when comparing the models. We also pre-evaluated many methods for doing this and then decided at the end on 4: pure prompting, just prompt and RAG, fine-tuning, and prompt and fine-tuning. They will come up again in a moment. And you see here a very brief excerpt, and it's by far not everything that we had to prompt for this, but just to get an idea, you have your raw machine translation input. The system gets the prompt, the Mistral Instruct model looks into customer data to help it enhance its response, and then gives out an enhanced translation. We used post-edition data set from the customer here. We also had to look into many different ways of preparing this data. I am not allowed to share this, I'm sorry, but if you are more interested in this, we can also arrange for a call to talk about this one-on-one and look into possibilities, how to do this here. In the end, we also had to create an evaluation scenario and compared the results. And that was the other part of the work, let's say, which is very important to remember. You really have to take your time to look into the data. We created a test set of randomized segments with the source as a reference, MT, LLM post-edited, and human post-edited segments. We did automatic evaluation with post-edit distance, BLEU, and COMET, and also blind human ABC testing and human linguistic error annotations. And we had to compare all of these to really come out with a combined result. And the winner was prompt and RAG. So using just a prompt, the elaborated prompt, not the small one that you saw, and the company data of the post-edited and TM data actually produced the very best results here. We also found that the LLM was better than raw MT, but less good than human post-editing, which was also very encouraging, because it was kind of what we wanted to find out, but we couldn't know if we would actually get this result. And the results were so encouraging that our client will continue on this path and bring this further and to use it productively. But let's move on to the other use case that I brought here today. The transformation. This use case is about transforming complex content into a simpler version to reach people that are not from the medical area. So expert language should be transformed into lay language. And again, we had 3 goals here in this project. Can LLMs do this reliably without changing the meaning of the source? Which LLMs and methods achieved this best? And in this use case, it was very vital to come up with a good evaluation method, as these results were a little harder to assess. It was a tough nut to crack, let's say. So the magic here was mostly in finding the best evaluation methods, because also it can get very costly if you need to do a lot humanly. This looks very similar to the other one, so I'll just let this run. But what actually was interesting here, they used the MT of expert content, and of course, after going through the prompt and the Mistral Instruct model and the customer data with RAG, they had then a translated lay audience version. And here the magic was in the data glossary and example data for lay style. So it was very different from the data that we used for the other use case, and we had to find this out. So this took a while actually. The whole process was a bit more lengthy than it may seem now. The methods also were slightly different. So what did we actually find out here? Well, we created the set of randomized segments again here with different with doc type and source, MT and LLM edition, so a little different, of course. And we created a method of scale-based human linguistic evaluation of the LLM editions. What was very interesting was the automatic evaluation, because here we had to use BERT score, Flash Kincaid readability scores, and so on, to find out if if the text actually reaches this language level that we need. And it was very encouraging to see that the automatic evaluation with BERT score and Flash Kincaid was very usable for the future, but also again, RAG with data performed best across all scenarios and evaluation components. That was very interesting because we couldn't be sure beforehand. We really tried many very elaborate methods here, and in the end, it was the simpler one that actually led to success. So what have we learned so far? I mean, here also the customer is, our clients' customers are very intrigued and want to take this further, because this is actually a big topic, and it can be LLMs have their strength in transforming language, creating, but also transforming it. So this is actually a very probable use case to continue in the future in this company. So what have we learned so far in our AI pilots? We did more, by the way. I only took 2 with me today because I was a bit afraid that we will run out of time. We also did some quality estimation and also source transformation, and we did a lot of in the terminology area. For example, term validation with AI, we have a very, very nice scenario for that. But yeah, again, reach out if you would like to find out more. We're happy to talk about it, obviously. It is very exciting for us as well. What works well and what doesn't? Well, I think it stands to reason. It's kind of logical that LLM on the rocks without a goal, without tweaking, without doing anything, doesn't work so well. Maybe depends on the use case, but not for our use cases here. We did try, of course, before on the rocks, and it wasn't very good. But integrated in a pipeline with a method and a goal, it does work quite well. And also, you have to remember it has to be usable, right? Your people have to be able to just to easily access it and use it, not start, having to prompt something or copy pasting something. It has to be logical and usable. A one-size-fits-all approach, and to just expect that the LLM will get it right because that's what it's made for, that doesn't work very well, because it does hallucinate, as we know. It does give you weird answers that sound good but are wrong. And evaluating models, though, and adapting the methods and having specific use cases, again, with goals, that really works very well. Also, if you don't have any data to help the LLM, that doesn't work so well. It works very well, though, if you have company data, be it mono or bilingual. Better is bilingual. In a RAG scenario, for us, that worked very well here. And not having any humans in the loop, again, that is something that from our perspective doesn't work too well, because you do need people that know how to tweak things, how to maybe change a method, how to maybe change a prompt. Prompt engineering is a word that's been around there. And to have NLP and data experts. So if you have them, and if you have them from the beginning in your project, if you don't have them, reach out to us, to others. There's a lot of experts out there. You should take them on your journey from the beginning. They should help you find things out. So these are some of the learnings that we had from our concrete use cases that I just shared with you. Some more learnings that are maybe a little more, let's say, strategic or projecty. They are, and by the way, I just would like to point out that I created this road because I wanted one with some curves, with also with AI. And look at the curves here; they're totally wrong. This is just so cool, very funny. Avoid stakeholder jam. You need to get your stakeholders on board from the beginning. You need to understand their needs and keep them informed. This is project management 101, but it's very important here because these are their use cases. If you're lucky, you will get stakeholder use cases, customer use cases you can work with, and then you need them to keep them close so they learn on the way, just like you will learn on the way. Avoid expectation crashes, which you can do by really clarifying your goals, challenges, and chances. Especially with AI and LLMs and everything, you have to talk real to management from the beginning. If you don't do that, they will misunderstand you, not on purpose, but it is easy to misunderstand. And it's very intriguing to everyone. I mean, I would like to remind you of my manager questions in the beginning. Why don't we just use AI? Well, because you need data, you need people, you need a process. So think big, but start small. Explain to them what you want to do and how you want to expand this. That, from our perspective and in our experience with our customer projects, works very well. In order to avoid a roadmap detour, you need a roadmap. That makes sense. You always do, in my opinion. You need to keep the management support, so inform them all the time and stick to the plan because it's easy to get detoured here. Many, many opinions. I found this on the internet. There's another cool LLM. There's this, there's that. Don't do that. I mean, sometimes you have to change, but then make sure that you do it for the right reasons and talk to everyone about it. Don't just jump around. It's just not, it's a waste of your resources. And in order to avoid tool confusion, try out and decide on your AI setup, and then again, stick with it until you tested it through, and then hop to the next one, because otherwise you really won't be able to get good results, and they have to be feasible. Your management has to understand them. They may want a business case. You really have to have your framework ready. Have your experts on board, very important. Include your stakeholders, MVP. I said this many times, but keep them close, have them try out things, have them ask their questions, grow together. I think it's an important message here. Find your friends in the company that you can do this with and that are interested. Find others that do AI projects and things and learn with them. I think it's something where we really need to join forces and lock shoulders. It's something that is very important. And yeah, I'm coming to the end already. And I would like to wrap this up a little bit with, the future is uncharted territory. That is always true. It is always uncharted territory, obviously, but with AI, maybe even a little bit more, because it is really very hard to know what awaits us. Again, here I stole with pride from Nimdzi. They did this really lovely language service development curve, which shows very well that we just don't know what's up starting 2025. No one dares a guess because it is very hard to guess. So what can you do here? You can all but remain skeptical, obviously, while watching it all, watching the market, but also selecting and finding tech partners that really work for you, that speak the truth, that don't blind you with beautiful AI solutions that just don't actually cut it. One from these 2000 logos on the other chart. Look after your data and your talent. I think this is very important. Please hang on to your old systems. Don't throw them away. You will need them. You'll need the data for sure. And we just don't know what's coming up yet. We don't know all the government regulations that are coming up. And until we do, I think we should tread carefully, but explore, let's say, and do these use cases and find these use cases and apply LLM in a more narrow way so that they really produce, that they're able to produce good results, which is very important. Otherwise, what are you going to tell your management, right? So do that. And I think when you do this, you will be successful with your AI/LLM projects and use cases. And I'm sure there's many more out there. I'll be very interested to hearing more about yours, of course, your ideas, what you're doing with it. We usually do, we go where our customers need this. So this is really customer centered and following them and their needs, but I'm sure there's much more out there. Last but not least, I would like to invite you, if you are in November 5th to 7th November, if you're in Stuttgart, there's the TC World Conference 2024. We have 2 presentations and a booth. And there's also a party on Tuesday evening. So yeah, it'd be great if you're interested. Just contact us. We'll give you all the information that you may need. That we also have an AI prompt planned, so that could also be interesting for you. And then there is also the Language Intelligence 2024 conference in Vienna on the 19th and 20th of November. And we have a presentation and also some kind of exciting use case, or like it's an AI use case slam that we kind of invented, where people show their use cases in 10 minutes and slam them and compete against each other. And we have one, which is our term validation use case. So that will also be interesting, I think. Yeah, and now I am done and I am almost on time.
You are perfectly on time. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That was a reality check for everyone
Ah,
who
I
has,
hope it was
for those
okay.
who have clients asking for AI, no matter what. Thank you
Ah,
so much. If
sure.
anyone has questions, please, and forget the pings. My colleagues in Seattle just woke up, so they keep pinging on Teams. But thank you so much, Kerstin. There was a
Sure.
question about the automatic post-editing case. Someone asked, what large language model did you use?
Oh, it was a Mistral 7B.
Yeah.
At the
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, you touched on a topic that's very important, that is train your resources, your human
Yes.
resources.
Yeah.
And any advice on that? Any practical advice?
I think you have to, everyone has to get their hands dirty. They have to have it's good to have an idea, someone that knows what is needed, and then people should really go in there and practice. And that's why I think these use cases are so great. I know everyone says, oh, today everyone is just piloting AI and nothing, but it was the same with MT. Do we remember? Don't we all remember?
Yes.
And now everyone is using it. So go in there, do the use cases, and let all your people get their hands dirty. It's very important. It's the only way to learn, to be honest, right? And then there's different ways things you can do. You can become a data expert. You can go more into the real tech area. You can maybe be a content specialist to make sure that the content is correct. There's many ways, and I think this is just evolving now, and it's I think we can create. We have to create. It's a curse. It's a blessing at the same time.
Interesting times in any case.
Yeah, for sure. Also for me, I'm 52, so.
Well, you could lose the age bet with me. But thank you so much, Kerstin, and thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you can send them to me and I'll send them to Kerstin, no problem.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Dominique, for example, has a comment. She remembers piloting MT, and she agrees with you that we shouldn't be afraid of large language models and AI in general. Thank you, Dominic, and thank you, Kerstin. We will see you in Stuttgart because Gala has a booth and has a localization track on the second day of TechCon and a dinner. So if you're in Stuttgart, Kerstin, you're invited, and everyone else also, of course. I will include the link for the registration in my follow-up email. That's all for today. I would like to invite attendees to take 10 seconds to fill in the post-webinar survey and suggest some topics for future webinars. And that's all from us. Have a great day or a great evening, and we'll see you soon at another Gala online webinar. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.